This week on MotoNZ.com, Ray fights with the rear wheel. Always grease your shaft. Hey team, how you doing? Ray here and here, and this is my Tenere 700, as you full well know by now. However, this bike has just ticked over 30,000 Ks, and since I got the bike at 1,800 Ks, I've been running, if I can show you, this cool little device in under there. Yeah, that there is called a Scottoiler. That's the X System 2.0, and that has been looking after my chain maintenance. Now, Scottoilers say that the Scottoilers can as much as double the lifespan of your chain and sprockets. So this is my chain and sprockets. It has done 30,000 Ks, as I just said, and I've got experience on the MT07, which this is largely based off. First MT07 did 40,000 Ks to a chain and sprockets. Second MT07 did 30,000. Or 20,000, I should say. Now this bike's just done 30,000, but it's done a lot more work. It's done harder work, you know, dirt and grime and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to change the chain and sprockets here this evening. It's a bit dark in me garage, so I apologise for that. But over here we've got a chain and sprockets. Sorry, over here we've got the rear sprocket and the front sprocket, and over here we have a chain. So, good luck everybody. As I say, I've done this twice before on the MT07s, never on a Tenere 700, so this is going to be a learning experience for all involved. First thing we're going to do is jack up the bike. Before we jack up the bike, we actually, crikey, it's dark in here, isn't it? Before we jack up the bike, what we do need to do is take that cover off the front sprocket here, and we need to crack this nut. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to break. So let's do that first. And I'm going to have a stab in the dark and say that these are 5mm Allen. Got it. Although there's not a lot of room in there without skinning me knuckles. Lucky they're not too tight, huh? First time I've had this apart on this bike. Now, can I get that off without taking that off? Oh, look at that, I can! It's not even too grubby. Lovely. All right, what size do we think that nut is? 20 something? Wow, that's bigger than that. And that is a 22. So what, 24 or 26? Oh, it's bigger than a 27. What are we thinking, team? 30? It's probably one of these sockets that I purchased to do this job on another bike and have never used since. Hey, it's a 30. All right. We're going to need a breaker bar. Now here is where it gets interesting, because what we need to do is lock up the rear wheel. Otherwise we're going to be turning it, right? So I'll get on the bike. I'll basically stand on the rear brake and see if I can do this myself. It's quite often a good idea to get somebody else to help you with this part of the process. And we're still moving forward. I'll try to put it in gear just for an extra bit of resistance. Alright, so I'm holding the front brake. I'm putting as much pressure as I can on the rear brake. And I just can't seem to undo that. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. So that is loose. Now we need to get the back wheel off the ground. Time for the wheel to come off. One axle. Looking pretty good. We'll definitely grease that before we put it back on though. Rear wheel is off. And if I'm honest, the rear sprocket doesn't actually look that bad. Yeah, the gaps between the teeth are probably a bit wider than normal, but if I get the new sprocket and lay it over it, you'll get a fair idea of what it looks like. So I think the new sprocket, the teeth look spikier. There we go, perfectly lined up, and it's definitely the same amount of teeth. I think the factory sprocket looks a little more worn, but it doesn't actually look too bad. I could run it again. Oh well, we'll swap it, but I'll definitely keep the factory sprocket. 14 mil, yep. Out with the old and in with the new. And the internet says 80 Newton meters on these nuts, which seems like an awful lot actually. We might as well check these little rubber, I think they call them cush drives. I've definitely seen them in worse condition than that. So they're all good. We can pop that back on. Right, next job. I think we've got to swap out the front sprocket and maybe cut the chain off. Fun times. All right, front sprocket come off. When you do this kind of job, it's a good chance to actually clean things like this up, which you never actually think about cleaning. That's 30,000 Ks worth of chain lube. And using this Scottoiler is actually quite good. It means that this isn't actually too bad. Other bikes I've done, this has been full and choked of chain lube and gross. But yeah, not too bad on this bike this time around. And that's our factory front sprocket, which also doesn't look crazy worn. The new one doesn't have the rubber dampening on it, so we'll just have to slam that on and hope for the best. But let's go over there and compare. Okay, so that is the old one, and that is the new one. And it looks like we've got the same amount of teeth, which is great. That front sprocket is a little more worn than the other one. But as you can see, 15 tooth sprocket is what's going on. Okay, so that there is where the new sprocket's going to go. Righto family, there's going to be sparks. Make sure you're wearing eye protection, make sure there's no flammables around. You know the drill. Here we are, team. We're past the point of no return. I actually see on forums on the internet all the time, how do you get the factory chain off? Well, now you know. It's not actually as worn as I thought it was. There's a bit of play in it. It's actually not bad. I probably almost wasting my time changing it, to be fair, if I'm completely honest. However, I have done it now. We have to live with our mistakes, so to speak. Beautiful. That fits nicely. I was just starting to wonder if it was going to fit. Okay, so that's as tight as it's going to get for now before we put the new chain back on there. We are now at the maybe a little bit over the halfway point. I've got the wheel over here with the new rear sprocket on it. We've got the front sprocket on the bike. I think what I need to do now is reignite. No, I need to put that on there. Always grease your shaft. Of course, remembering, and I don't know if I need to say it again, that I am not a mechanic. I am not a trained mechanic. So everything that I say is regurgitated from the internet. Take it with the grain of salt that it was intended with. Getting everything lined up here is a trick because you've got what I think is called a floating rear brake caliper. You've got spacers. You've got all of these bits that all need to be lined up, and then you've got to hold it there while you get your axle in. And I'm sure this makes riveting viewing. This week on MotoNZ.com, Ray fights with the rear wheel. And just like that, we're in. Right, want to keep that loose. Want it to be able to slide backwards and forwards. Well, the reason we want it forward is we've got to run this through this new chain around. Man, I've had this chain sitting around for so long. There's the link. Of course, if it wasn't for COVID times, I probably would have had to do this a long time ago. So after fighting with this for about 20 minutes, I worked out what my mistake was. And I didn't have the caliper on the other side seated properly, which meant this side of the axle couldn't move all the way forward, so I was a link out. But we have lined up now. I've got a couple of little O-rings here, and I've got a couple of O-rings in the packet as well. So we should have heaps of O-rings. And your master link consists of a plate, a couple of clips, and a couple of O-rings and the master link itself. So you want O-ring, O-ring, pop it in from the back, like so, and then that'll hold itself there now. Then we need to do O-ring. Might be an X ring or something, but you know what I mean. O-ring, front plate, and then we need to use the tool to sandwich it all together. I'm gonna go clean my hands first though. Rightio, the only other thing to do now is torque up the front bolt and tension the chain. And that is a chain and sprockets changed on a Tenere 700, all over bar the shouting. Let's go for a ride. Hopefully the wheels don't fall off.
Alrighty, first ride on the new chain and sprockets. And the first thing I noticed with the brand new chain and sprockets and newly tension chain is just how smooth the bike is. There's no jerk when the when you got to take off, or you know, when that slack kicks in. With the old chain and sprockets, when I say it was getting noisy, when you ride past, you know, parked cars on the side of the road, that noise kind of reflects off them and you can hear it. And there we are, first time up to 100 kilometers an hour on the new chain and sprockets, and it's smooth. It's really smooth and really quiet. The throttle's not snatchy. I quite like it. It's good. I think I potentially could have got another 10,000 Ks out of the old chain and sprockets, especially looking at it. I mean, it looked warm, but it didn't look worn out. I think there is some ever so slight vibration coming through the pegs from the new setup, and I can't establish off the top of my head right now whether that is because I'm not used to having the chain so tight, or maybe the front sprocket not having those rubber rings on it. That's what that front sprocket cancels out. But I'm loving how smooth it is. Like, that gap between rolling off the throttle and getting back on is not snatchy. And that's, I mean, that's not the new chain and sprockets, that's just having a properly tensioned chain. I'm pretty bad for not adjusting my chain probably as often as I should. So all up, the job took me about 2.5 hours last night. It could have been done faster, but I've faffed around with the cameras and stuff. But it is doable. It's something that you can do. Of course, if you don't feel confident doing this sort of work on your own bike, then by all means take it into a mechanic. But apart from, say, the 24mm socket for the rear axle, and I think it was a 30mm socket for the front sprocket, there's nothing that I wouldn't imagine most people wouldn't have as far as tools in their toolbox. If you don't have those tools, then get yourself a decent socket set. I haven't bought any of those particular tools for this bike. I guess I'm lucky in that I had two MT-07s and they use pretty much the same tools. Every bike's different. Just make sure you've got the right gear for your bike, and you shouldn't have any problem.